The first time I stepped onto the world of Elythera, I understood immediately why the galaxy called it the jewel of the outer systems. 3 brilliant moons hung in the violet sky. Crystal oceans reflected the light of distant stars. And above the capital city floated the royal palace, a structure so massive it seemed to defy gravity itself. I wasn't there as a tourist. I was there because humanity had recently joined the Interstellar Concord, an alliance of dozens of alien civilizations. And someone had made the questionable decision to appoint me as a diplomatic advisor. My name is Daniel Hayes, former linguistics professor, accidental diplomat, and apparently the first human ever assigned to work inside the royal court of the Elytherian Empire, which meant I would be working very closely with one particular individual, Princess Lyrielle, heir to the Elytherian throne, and, according to nearly every diplomat in the galaxy, dangerously intelligent. Chapter 2. The Princess. Elytherians were impossible to ignore. They were tall, graceful beings with luminous silver skin that shimmered like starlight. Their eyes glowed faintly with bioluminescent patterns that changed with their emotions. And Princess Lyrielle was the most striking of them all. Her long, iridescent hair flowed like liquid light, and her presence had an almost gravitational pull. But what fascinated me most wasn't her appearance. It was her mind. Lyrielle had a reputation across the Concord for being brilliant. She spoke 23 known languages. She had personally negotiated peace treaties between 3 rival star systems. And she had done all of that before reaching what her species considered adulthood. In short, she was terrifying. Not because she was cruel, but because she was sharp. The kind of person who noticed everything. Which is why what happened later was deeply embarrassing. Chapter 3. The Conversation. The incident started with a completely harmless conversation. At least, it seemed harmless at the time. I was standing in one of the palace observation halls with Commander Jalen, the Elytherian officer assigned as my escort. We had just finished attending a royal briefing. Through the massive glass wall behind us, the city stretched across the horizon like a sea of glowing towers. And in the center of it all, Princess Lyrielle stood speaking with several advisors. Jalen crossed his arms. "You humans stare a lot," he said. I blinked. "What?" "You have been watching the princess for nearly 5 minutes." I quickly looked away. "I'm not staring." "Yes, you are." "I'm observing." "That is the same thing." I sighed. "Look, she's the future ruler of this entire empire. Of course I'm observing her." Jalen smirked slightly. "Is that the only reason?" "Yes." He raised an eyebrow. "You are certain?" I hesitated, which was my first mistake. Chapter 4. The Comment. "All right," I admitted. "Maybe not the only reason." Jalen leaned closer. "I knew it." "Relax," I said quietly. "I'm just saying she's impressive." "In what way?" I lowered my voice. "Come on, Jalen. You can't tell me Elytherians don't realize how striking she is." He tilted his head. "Define striking." I immediately regretted continuing the conversation. But I did anyway. "She's beautiful," I said. Jalen shrugged. "That is a common observation." "Not just beautiful," I said. "Confident. Intelligent. The way she carries herself." I gestured toward the princess across the room. "She's got this presence that fills the entire space." Jalen nodded slowly. "And," I sighed. "And, if we're being completely honest." I leaned closer and whispered, "She also has an incredible—" A voice interrupted behind me. "Human." I froze. Chapter 5. The Realization. The voice was calm, elegant, and very, very familiar. Slowly, I turned around. Princess Lyrielle stood directly behind us. Her glowing eyes were fixed on me. Jalen immediately straightened and saluted, but I was too busy internally screaming. How long had she been standing there? How much had she heard? The princess tilted her head slightly. You were saying something about me? My brain attempted to reboot. Jalen quietly stepped backward. Traitor. I apologize if I interrupted, Lyrielle continued. Her tone was polite. Too polite. Please, she said. Finish your sentence. Chapter 6. Panic. This was the moment when my diplomatic career almost ended, because my brain decided to abandon me completely. I was just saying that you're impressive. She crossed her arms. That is what I heard. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but it was not the end of the sentence. I glanced desperately at Jalen. He pretended to study a nearby statue. Coward. Lyrielle stepped closer. You lowered your voice for the final portion. Her expression was calm, but curious. I assume that means it was the most interesting part. My heart pounded. Princess, I truly didn't mean any disrespect. I did not say I was offended. Then, I said I was curious. She leaned slightly closer. So tell me, human, what exactly did you say about me? Chapter 7. The Truth. There was no escape. No clever diplomatic maneuver. Only the truth. I said you're beautiful, I admitted. The princess blinked once. That is not a secret comment, right? I swallowed. I also said you're intelligent and confident. Her glowing eyes remained locked on mine. And I sighed. And I said you have a strong presence. She considered that. And I may have mentioned your physical attributes. For the first time, her expression shifted. Not anger, not offense. Something closer to amusement. Which attributes? I hesitated. She smiled faintly. You are the one who brought it up. Jalen made a choking sound behind me. Traitor again. Your Majesty, I said carefully. With respect, this conversation is becoming extremely dangerous for me. Lyrielle laughed. It was the first time I had heard her laugh. And it changed everything. Chapter 8. The Unexpected Reaction. You humans are fascinating, she said. I am currently facing potential diplomatic disaster, I replied. And yet you are still trying to remain polite. I'm trying to remain alive. Her smile widened. You believed I could not hear you. Yes. That was a mistake. How good is your hearing? She pointed casually toward the opposite side of the hall. Someone over there just whispered that you are in trouble. I groaned. That bad? Yes. But, she continued, I appreciate honesty. You do. Most diplomats spend their entire careers avoiding honesty. She studied me carefully. You did not. Chapter 9. The Invitation. Then she said something unexpected. Walk with me. What? The gardens. She gestured toward the palace exit. I find this conversation entertaining. I looked at Jalen. He looked back with the expression of someone watching a train derail. Good luck, he whispered. I followed the princess into the palace gardens. Chapter 10. The Garden. The royal gardens of Elythera were unlike anything on Earth. Floating platforms drifted above glowing pools of bioluminescent water. Alien flowers pulsed softly with light. The air smelled faintly of something sweet and metallic. Princess Lyrielle walked ahead of me along a crystalline path. So, she said, tell me more. About what? Your observations. I thought we already established those were dangerous. She glanced back over her shoulder. You are a diplomat. Yes. And yet you speak like a historian. Old habits. Then continue your observations. I hesitated. You really want honesty? Yes. All right. I took a breath. You're not just intelligent. She waited. You're curious. How is that unusual? For a royal heir? Very. Chapter 11. The Real Conversation. We stopped beside a floating pool that reflected the stars above. You think royalty should not be curious? She asked. I think most rulers stop asking questions once they gain power. And you believe I have not? I believe you ask more questions than anyone in this palace. She looked genuinely surprised. How could you possibly know that? I've been watching. She smirked. Yes, I am aware. Every meeting you attend, I continued, you let everyone else speak first. That is strategy. No, I said. It's curiosity. She studied me carefully. You pay attention. It's my job. Chapter 12. The Threat. Her expression suddenly grew serious. Then you should know something. What? The Empire is facing a problem. That sounds like classified information. It is. Then why tell me? Because you are an outsider. And outsiders notice things we do not. She gestured toward the stars above. A neighboring empire has begun mobilizing fleets. War. Possibly. I felt my stomach tighten. And you're asking a human linguistics professor for strategic advice? No. She smiled slightly. I'm asking the human who is honest enough to compliment my appearance in a crowded hall. That's a terrifying qualification. Chapter 13. The Turning Point. Over the next hour, we talked about politics, strategy, human history. Lyrielle asked more questions than I could answer. By the end of the conversation, I realized something important. She wasn't just testing me. She was evaluating me. You are right about one thing, she said eventually. What's that? I am curious. And now I am curious about humans. That could be dangerous. Why? Because curiosity is how you accidentally make friends with us. She laughed again. Perhaps I already have. Chapter 14. The Aftermath. The next morning, the palace buzzed with rumors. Apparently, the princess had spent hours speaking privately with a human advisor, which meant every diplomat in the court now believed I had some secret influence. I did not, but Lyrielle continued inviting me to discussions, sometimes about politics, sometimes about history, and occasionally about embarrassing human comments. You still have not finished your original sentence, she reminded me one evening. I groaned. You're never going to let that go, are you? Probably not. Chapter 15. The Ending. Weeks later, the Empire successfully negotiated peace with its rival. No war. No battles. Just diplomacy. One evening we stood again in the palace gardens. You realize something? Lyrielle said. What? If you had not made that comment, we might never have spoken. That's not exactly comforting. She smiled. Perhaps honesty is more powerful than diplomacy. I thought about that. Or maybe, I said, I was just very lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. Oh, you said something honest. And you listened. She looked up at the glowing moons above Elythera. Yes, she said softly. I did. And somehow, that embarrassing moment had turned into the beginning of the strangest diplomatic friendship in the galaxy.